All right, so what's going on, everybody? I got a really cool video here today. We're going to be talking about how do we separate movements in the pelvis for what we need out of functional turn and functional movement. So when we firstly look at the pelvis, I think it's really important to understand all of the movements of it. So we have three different spaces, three different parts of the hips that we can move from. So we've got the lead side here. This can move internal, it can move external. We have the trail side, it can move external, it can move internal. So internal is towards midline, external is away from it. Same thing with the lead side, internal midline, external is away from it. And then we have where the spine, the lumbar spine enters the pelvis, right in here. Then we would have rotation from this standpoint, which also helps us cover a lot of the upper body rotation here. So when we look at the pelvis, and when I see a lot of players that I coach and a lot of questions I get online, I know a lot of people are super interested in how do we get the hips open, how do we clear, what is functional rotation, etc. So the first thing I would say is there's a million different ways to do it. We can do it via the ground, we can rotate, we have horizontal movements, we have vertical movements, and we have torque and rotational movements. So this is kind of one of the ways that I like to explain pelvic movements and how I think they can fit just about all of us who try and swing the golf club. So first things first, I like to relate a lot of pelvic movements and how they also relate to what the knees do. So when I see a player, a lot of times where I see players who get in trouble with pelvic movements is one, in the backswing, they overwork the lead hip and the lead leg internal here. So they get everything moving together, and we almost get too much pressure this direction to where I see players go too far this way, which would be backwards, or they start to collapse depending on how far out and how far forward the knee goes, and they go into an excessive tilt this way. So one of the things that we need to comprehend here is, one, what do we want out of the lead side? And then we're going to break down the trail side. So for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of tape right here, and I'm going to put this on each knee right here. So I'm going to put this on my lead knee, and I'm going to put this on my trail knee, okay? So this is going to basically represent where the knee is. And then I've got my belt buckle right here. So if I take this, now we've got a relationship of how the center of the pelvis is working in relation to the lead knee and how it's working in relation to the trail knee. So for me, it's set up. Number one, the thing that I would like to see out of a stock model is I like to see the lead knee more externally rotated. Okay? I like to see the trail knee minutely externally rotated to neutral here. And what we'll notice, this is what I see out of players who struggle with leg work, ground pressure, and how the pelvis operates, is we'll actually see this point and this point, they work together. Okay? And then in the downswing, we'll see this. We'll see the trail knee and the center of the pelvis. These work together, so they're working at the same rate of speed in the same direction. That becomes a balance loss. And so what we see out of that, when this player is doing this, and they're doing this, they're moving the knees and moving the hips to try and turn the pelvis. A lot of times, the upper body moves in conjunction with that, and everything goes together on the way back and together on the way through based on how the pelvis is moving. So what I would want to see out of this to start, this would be the first place. Let's say this knee right here, if this is 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I'm going to keep the knee at 10 o'clock as I turn the center of my hip back towards my trail side. So I'm going to try and keep this at 10 o'clock as I turn the center of my hip back closer to this point on my knee. Then the trail leg can start to extend. So this would be more of our look here for what I like to see out of leg work. Now, we can see, has this moved in a little bit? Yes, but it is more subconscious movement. It's not individual knee movement to create this here. So I think this is a really important aspect for us as players to be able to comprehend. So here's where the lead knee is, here's where the center of the pelvis is, and what we're going to do is we're going to work this point so we can see how the center of my hip is worked further away from that, closer to this. Then the trail leg is starting to extend. Now on the downswing, these rolls are going to reverse. This point is going to stay here. I'm going to be moving my lead knee and the center of my hip away from this. That is getting my pressure back forward. And from a down the line view, if I put this in my belt here real quick, from a down the line view, when I turn this to the top, so this has stayed at 10, tried to stay at 10, the center of my hip is worked closer to here and that extends. As I keep this point here and I drive the center of my hip and my lead knee away from this, that is what's gotten my pelvis back to square. So from here, what we would see out of this is where the trail side now has a lot of room to make up. If we look at this, so this is square, the trail hip now, by the time it gets to the finish, needs to get all the way around to this point. So from here, I have pressure in the ball of my foot, and this hip is going to start to internally rotate here to get my pressure forward. So this is how I see functional movement out of the pelvis and out of the knees to create stability, pressure forward, and the adequate amount of rotation that I think we need as players from a functional standpoint. So again, so if we go through this, I'm here in setup. My lead side is going to start at 10 o'clock for the right-handed player. It would be 2 o'clock for a left-handed player. I'm now going to take the center of the pelvis and work it closer to my trail leg. This will then extend as this point is here. And now I think this is a really good exercise for you to do. If you take a club, put it here on the knee, and we would work this away so that we have something that does not allow the knee to very quickly work back into internal rotation. So from down the line, this is where I see a lot of us getting in trouble as we internally rotate this knee and this hip early, and then the arms get trapped. So when we're doing this, and like I said, from a practice standpoint, I think it's important to start with how this is actually working. What does it feel like? How do I do it without a club? So 10 o'clock, external, external, center of my hip moves closer to the trail leg, and this point on my knee, I extend the leg. Now I'm going to keep this on the knee. I'm going to drive this forward until my belt line is square. Now again, from here, this is how much space we still have to clear with the trail hip, and that's going to go into an internal rotation. And from down the line, you can see how my hips have stayed inside of my toe line there. So I think just learning how to move functionally like this first is great. Now, from a drill standpoint, working on this, where I see most of us get in trouble is we let the trail knee and the center of the hip work together. So what I would do as a drill here is we're going to take the trail foot, we're going to point it out externally. And now from here, hitting shots, I want you to feel in transition as we drive the lead side away, we're trying to keep this point on our knee back with pressure on the ball of our foot. So we might hit some half shots or some 3/4 shots that would look something like this. So I'd be here, turn, and that would be more of my look. To get the feel of being able to separate this movement from from the lead knee. So the center of the hip and the lead knee are working away from the trail knee versus them moving together here. So I'd be here, set up, I'm going to keep this pointed out, trail foot's out here, and then I'd go. And that would be more of the look. Then I would start to teach myself how to continue to internally rotate that from there. So this is a really great way to start to understand the functionality of how the pelvis works in conjunction with the knees and what we're looking for out of an internal movement, external movement, and how the center of the hip works in conjunction with the knees. So I hope this video finds you well. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments down below. I'll make sure to get back to each and every one of you. Thank you again for your support. I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this video here. If you haven't, please click that subscribe button. You can also click the bell right there, and that's going to notify you every time that I release a new YouTube video. Also, if you haven't, check out that last video that I did. It's right here, pinned to the screen. Thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave those below, and I will make sure I get back to each and every one of you. So, thank you again. Appreciate your support. We'll see you next time.